Good morning. Welcome to the Boise Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. We are a spiritually diverse, justice-seeking religious community proclaiming the power of love at the core of our living tradition. Love of neighbor, love of ourselves, and love for our planet. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, however you identify, you are welcome here. I am Debra Smith, the celebrant this morning, and I am joined by Mark McGinnis, who will be offering the sermon today. Let's take a moment to welcome our online community, those joining us via Zoom. Turn around and wave to those cameras. We lost our little happy face guy during the fire, I guess. And then look, they've turned their cameras on. They're so well trained. And we're going to say good morning to you. Some of you slept in because it was a rollicking night last night. I understand. Zoom friends, we are so glad you are here. A special welcome to our newcomers, both online and here in the room today, those joining us for the first or second time. We know it takes a lot of courage to check out a new community, and we're glad you have chosen to be with us this morning. Those of you online and here in the room, please be sure to fill out a newcomer form, and we will invite you to join our Wednesday Gazette, where you will learn all about the activities and upcoming events. I have a reminder that today we will continue our Inquirers series for newcomers. This week, it will focus on Unitarian Universalism and this particular fellowship and its history, and that's down the South Hall. I'd also like to acknowledge our very successful auction that we held last night. You can collect your items today at the end of the South Hall, and I'm just going to take a moment to acknowledge everybody. So if you were on the planning team, would you please stand up? There were more, but they're at home. And keep standing, please. Keep standing. And let's hold our applause, because there are we had over 50 volunteers. If you donated an item, please stand up. If you hosted a table, please stand up. If you cooked anything, please stand up. Yeah, we got a lot of those. I've never seen so many scalloped potatoes in my life. If you set up or cleaned up, please stand up. If you bid on the special appeal, please stand up. If you bid on an item, please stand up. If you enjoyed the camaraderie of seeing all this participation, please stand up. I bet you'd like to know how much we made. Our gross receipts, they're not quite finalized yet, was $48,000. We're in the big leagues, folks. And half of that, approximately $24,000, went to the special appeal, which will fund our social justice work. Wow, huh? Right? I want you to stick around after today, and you will get a presentation from the Engaging Spaces team. And they will update you on the remodel that we will begin in May. And we just got our contractor's bids, so Bob Smith will be here to update you after the service. There's also a film screening of the documentary 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted Culture. This is a very important film. If you missed the screening we did last September, you have another chance on Tuesday, March 11th. We're teaming up with Boise First UUC congregation to share this powerful film about how the mistranslation of two Greek words that concern specific practices became the general condemnation of all loving same-sex relationships. The screening is at 7 p.m. at the Boise First UCC Church, which is on Woodlawn Drive. It's got a very distinct roof. You'll find it. Okay, I think that's, okay. Each week, we begin our worship service centering ourselves by lighting the flaming chalice, a symbol of our free faith, a beacon of hope, love, and justice.
All right. So today, we have a new chalice lighter, and her name is Elizabeth Potasic. Right? Did I get it? Okay. And we invite, come on up, come on. We invite any young people to light the chalice in the hope for the future and our collective commitment to build a brighter world together. And just to let everybody know, we have an online form now that any youth, anybody in RE, if you'd like to come up and be our chalice lighter for a service, you can sign up very easily. So, as Elizabeth lights the chalice here in the sanctuary, I invite all of you in the virtual community to light a chalice if you have one nearby, along with us this morning, and then share in the chat where your chalice is lit. Oh, you're not done yet. Come in. So we just wanted to share a little bit. So Elizabeth, this is her first time lighting the chalice. So we thank you very much. And as a first-time chalice lighter, you get your own chalice lighting pin. So here's that for you. And Elizabeth just had a little info to share. So Elizabeth is a sixth grader at Answer Charter School. She loves being with and cuddling her dogs, right? And she also enjoys playing in the snow. So thank you again, Elizabeth.
This is the beginning of Women's History Month, and so we will honor that tradition in the face of those who try to suppress its celebration. We will sing from the Teal hymnal, hymn number 1026, If Every Woman in the World. Please rise as you are able.
We come from and live on land considered sacred by many indigenous peoples, known as Bannock, Shoshone, Paiute, and many other tribes that lived here sustainably for thousands of years, inhabiting a vast region including much of Idaho.
We recognize the long history of the land, long before colonization, and acknowledge the ancient tribes whose names have been lost in history.
With this acknowledgement, we wish to demonstrate our commitment to dismantling the legacies of settler colonialism. We honor Indigenous peoples' connection to the land and support their right to sovereignty.
In the challenges of these truths, may we move through the world bringing justice in every way that we can, listening to the truths spoken to us by Native American peoples, making space for them to re-inhabit this place, and giving them back the resources they need to heal their communities.
Our spiritual theme for the month of March is living love through the practice of trust. And today our service explores the extraordinary self-possession and self-trust demonstrated by Ida B. Wells, a Black female investigative journalist working to expose the heinous crimes of lynching in post-Reconstruction America. As we enter into this time of worship, let us take a moment to breathe together. Fill your body with breath, knowing that our breath connects us to one another, to our bodies, and to our planet. Our breath offers us the opportunity for stillness, to tune into our spiritual center, to listen deeply to our heart's own longing. Thou art the song of my heart in the morning. Thou art the dawn of truth in my soul. Thou art the dew of the roses adorning. Thou art the woven whole. Thine is the grace to be steadfast in danger. Thine is the peace that none can destroy. Thine is the face of the need-driven stranger. Thine are the wings of joy. Thou art the deep, to the deep in me calling. Thou art a lamp where my feet shall tread. Thy way is steep, past the peril of falling. Thou art my daily bread. Thine be the praise of my spirit uplifted. Thou art the sea to each flowing stream. Thine be the days that are gathered and sifted. Thou art the deathless dream.
What can I learn from you in your lifetime and what you've been through? How'd you keep your head up and hold your pride in an insane world? How'd you keep on trying? One life can tell the tale. If you make the effort, you cannot fail. By your life, you tell me it can be done. By your life's the courage to care. light the flame. As time goes, you find you depend on your heroes to show you the way. What can I learn from you? That I must do the thing I think I cannot do. That you do what's right by your heart and soul. It's the imperfections that make us whole. One life can tell the tale, that if you make the effort, you cannot fail. By your life you tell me it can be done. By your life's the courage to carry on. Heroes appear like a friend to clear a path or light the flame. As time goes, you find you depend on your heroes to show you the way. Heroes. Sojourner Truth, Eleanor Roosevelt, Katharine Hepburn, Sally Ride, Susan B. Anthony, Harriet Tubman, Annie Sullivan, Gertrude Stein, Coretta Scott King, Amelia Earhart, Lillian Hellman, Eartha Kitt, Sacagawea, Ella Fitzgerald, Golda Meir, Dorothy Dix, Louisa May Alcott, Billie Jean King, Emily Dickinson, Lucy Stone, Margaret Sanger, Clara Barton, Billie Holiday, Juliette Lowe, Elizabeth Blackwell, Rosa Parks, Lena Horne, Beverly Sills, Barbara Jordan, Helen Keller, Indira Gandhi, Agnes DeMille, Corazon Aquino, Gloria Steinem, Rachel Carson, Joan of Arc, Babe Zaharias, Marlene Dietrich, and Frank Simone de Beauvoir.
I counted 5 Unitarian Universalists among that group. Our call to worship this morning is from the Reverend Gretchen Haley, slightly amended for this morning's service. Every little thing that breaks your heart is welcome here. We'll make a space for it, give it its due time and praise, for the wanting it represents, the longing for something more, some healing hope that remains not yet. We promise no magic, no making it all better, but offer only this circle of trust, this human community that dares to remember what some would have us forget, that sings and prays hard truths imperfectly and sometimes awkwardly. This gathering that loves, though not yet enough, we're still practicing after all, still learning, still in need of help and partners, still becoming able to trust even more, to receive all the world's sorrow and all this beauty and all these tender gifts we bring each other. Come, let us worship together. Our promise of building beloved community, we celebrate our commitments to being a multi-generational community, one of generosity and of care and connection. In that spirit, I would like to invite all the children up front for our Time for All Ages with Travis.
How's everybody doing? Oh. Hi. How are you doing? Morning, Connor. How are you? I've got it. How's everybody doing today? Nice to see everybody. So today we're talking about a story about trust. About trust. And I brought props. I dropped the props. All right. So this story is about a man who went to visit what everybody said was the finest porcelain shop in the whole land. The man there was supposed to be a master craftsman who made only the finest wares, and was very interested in going to see this master craftsman's work. So he went into the shop and he says, "Your shop is so famous. How can I really know that you are as good of a craft person as I've heard?" And the owner of the shop said, "Well, I am a master craftsman. And I learned my craft from my father, who was a master craftsman, who learned his craft from his father, who was a master craftsman, who learned his craft from his father, who was a master craftsman," and on and on and on. And centuries of knowledge had been passed down into this one shop. But the man who came in was still a little skeptical. So he decided to perform a test. And he had heard that to test the quality of porcelain, you must knock one bowl gently against another. And if you can hear a sweet resonance that rang out, you know you have found a bowl and a master of the craft. And so he took a bowl and he knocked against the first one. Oh. It didn't ring out. Let's try the next one. Oh. Did that ring out? Like what you would expect from a fine porcelain quality? And he was, all of them sound dull. And after he tried them on, he was like the man who had come in and said, "I had heard so much about these bowls. None of these rang. He must be a fraud. This man must be a liar." But the owner of the shop noticed what the man was doing. And as the man had turned around to leave, the owner of the shop said, "Wait 1 second, young man." He said, come back here. And he said, "Pick up a different bowl. Why don't you do one of the other bowls that are up on the wall to do your test?" Okay? So the man did as the master said. And when he knocked on the first bowl, it rang out. And the second bowl, and the third bowl, and the fourth. Is that what you would expect to hear from a master craftsman? Yeah. And so the man who came into the shop said, so the bowls are good after all. But why couldn't I hear the resonance? And he says, and the owner of the shop says, because, frankly, the bowl you used was flawed. Said the master, I'm sorry, but every bowl that I make, every piece of porcelain I make, I test and I make sure, and I knew this one was flawed, but I hadn't had a chance to throw it away yet. And so, by using that bowl as the test, you would never hear the resonance. So you see, in life, he went on to say, the master or the craftsman said, you see, in life, in your life, how can you expect love if you can't love? How can you expect beauty if you only see the ugly in everybody else? How can you see truth if you yourself are a liar? But if you open yourself up to what's called the Tao will await, eagerly welcome you in. If you open yourself up to virtue, the virtue will become part of you. If you open yourself up to loss, the losses will be glad to see you. And when you do not trust people, people will become untrustworthy. So you see, you give to receive, and life will be yours. The end. And then, all right, let's do our community blessing. And we have 2 groups for RE today, so anybody that are older, kids 11 and older, can go over with Teresa over here, and then the rest of us will come over with me this way. And because we don't have nursery today, if any adults with the little ones would also like to join us, you come right along. Okay.
I do have to issue a little bit of a warning. Today's service might be hard for really young children. It'll be hard for many of us, but particularly for the young children. So, yeah, preteens. When we give, we say yes to the natural cycle of abundance in our lives, and we say yes to building beloved communities within and beyond our walls. We commit ourselves to do the work of justice and compassion for all people and our earth. Today, we share those gifts with our plate partner, Pink Haven Coalition, as an expression of that commitment and living out our faith in the world. There are many ways that, There are many ways that you can give, make a financial gift, in addition to dropping it in the offering basket. You can visit our online giving page. You can scan the QR code that is on the screen. You can visit our website at boiseuu.org, or you can click on the Vanco app on your smartphone. For our online community, you can also drop a link. We will drop a link in the chat. However you choose to give, you nurture our community, and we are grateful. And now we will hear about the Pink Haven Coalition.
The Pink Haven Coalition, formed 2 years ago to ensure the survival of two-spirit, trans, and gender-expansive people in a more extreme environment.
We knew a large grassroots network of groups and individuals gave us the greatest resilience against fascist attacks, as well as the greatest access to resources, without submitting to the insecurities of the nonprofit world of grant cycles and information overshare. We needed to create a network that was both nimble and effective, with a strong security culture to protect everyone involved. This organizing plan has proven wise, as fascists more easily target forward-facing groups and individuals.
Both the UUA and UUSC have become vital partners in the struggle against trans genocide, as have a number of congregations and individuals around the United States. As Unitarians came together during the height of World War II to support people fleeing Nazi persecution, we see the same drive today. Unitarian Universalists have both the historical legacy to be accomplices in the work of trans survival, as well as access to human and financial resources that enable this difficult work to advance.
The work the Pink Haven Coalition has done so far has inspired organizers and made a profound difference with our passengers. I am proud to be involved in this fight for the liberation of my two-spirit, trans, and gender-expansive beloveds, because this work speaks to the core of my values, that no one is free until everyone is free, that the incredible diversity of creation is the source of all beauty, strength, and joy, and that it is my duty to leverage any privilege I may have to the cause of justice and to encourage others to do the same.
As an abolitionist committed to trans liberation, being a part of this network is a powerful way for me to practice the world I want to live in. Honestly, this is selfish work for me because I know that my world is better when two-spirit, trans, and gender-expansive folks can live as their full, true, and authentic selves. And I have the great joy of being part of building the beloved community in the here and now for all of us. What this network does is vital, life-saving work. How this network does what it does is soul-saving work.
I have been involved with many organizations over the past 30 plus years, and rarely have I seen one run as effectively, passionately, and with such integrity as this one. Run by impacted people, for impacted people, by listening to those most impacted to get them to a place of safety and hopefully onto a life of self-actualization and success. In this particular time in our country, when so much is in flux, to know that there's an organization doing the work that needs to get done because purely and simply it needs to get done is such a gift, and I continue to treasure the opportunities I have to be a part of it.
The greatest honor for me is being there for our passengers as they share their grief and fear over the hateful conditions that have been imposed on them, and to be a witness to their tears of sadness. But then also, as we help them find hope and ways to greater safety, we give them possibility, then I also get to witness their tears of happiness and of hope. And this is what I want everyone to be able to feel.
Pink Haven has helped in so many ways, but most importantly, Pink Haven, in my opinion, saved my daughter's life, aiding us to flee a state that was no longer safe for us in any way, shape, or form. All the people who have helped and continue to help us has really saved my little but strong family. I can't wait for us to find a home to plant our roots so we can also join Pink Haven in helping other families. We love you all and thank you all so very much. I've been a single mom their whole life, and Pink Haven is the first group of people who has helped us. It brings tears to my eyes. It truly does take a village. It just took us a while to find ours.
Over 500 laws passed recently against this group. I will invite the ushers to please come forward. We will now receive our offering. We bless these gifts so freely given. May generosity always be our companions as we walk the holy path towards ever greater compassion and beauty. Thank you. Our reading this morning is taken from Frederick Douglass. 3 years before he died in 1895, Frederick Douglass, famous abolitionist, met Ida B. Wells, whose courageous work in exposing injustices wrought against Black people impressed him greatly. He penned this letter to her. Dear Miss Wells, let me give you thanks for your faithful paper on the lynch abomination now generally practiced against colored people in the South. There has been no word equal to it in convincing power. I have spoken, but my word is feeble in comparison. You give us what you know and testify from actual knowledge. You have dealt with the facts with cool, painstaking fidelity and left those naked and uncontradicted facts to speak for themselves. Brave woman, you have done your people and mine a service which can neither be weighed nor measured. If American conscience were only half alive, if the American church and clergy were only half Christianized, if American moral sensibility were not hardened by persistent infliction of outrage and crime against colored people, a scream of horror, shame, and indignation would rise to heaven wherever your pamphlet shall be read. But alas, even crime has power to reproduce itself and create conditions favorable to its own existence. It sometimes seems we are deserted by earth and heaven, yet we must still think, speak, and work and trust in the power of a merciful God for final deliverance. Very truly and gratefully yours, Frederick Douglass.
Good morning, friends. I apologize for being down here so far. What I'd like to share with you this morning is part of a new project I'm working on right now. It's called Agents of Change, 1830 to 1930, a period of incredible human activity and creativity. So far in this project, I've written essays and done pastel drawings of Charles Darwin, Paul Cézanne, Charlie Chaplin, and Ida B. Wells. She is such a good person to talk about today because we just finished Black History Month, and now we're in Women's History Month. And she is a woman, a person, who filled both of those with her incredible efforts. Ida B. Wells, who is she? I think there may be a few shrugs around the room because I shrugged. I did not find Ida B. Wells until I researched for possible people to use in this project that I was beginning. But after I found her, I found that she was a fierce journalist who led the most effective anti-lynching campaign in our history. I now believe she is one of America's greatest citizens. Ida's father and mother were slaves in Hot Springs, Mississippi. Ida was born in 1862 enslaved, but that didn't last long. 1863, the emancipation came, and she and her parents and her 7 brothers and sisters were free. There was a yellow fever epidemic in 1878. It killed both her parents and one of her siblings. There was an attempt to split up the family, but 16-year-old Ida got a job teaching, and with her grandmother, she kept the family together. In 1881, Ida moved to Memphis, Tennessee, bringing 2 of her sisters with her. She became employed as a teacher again and attended Fisk University. She became very involved in both civil and women's rights. An example of this feisty 24-year-old's attitude is the following quote: "I will not begin at this late time by doing what my soul abhors, sugaring men. Weak, deceitful creatures. With flattery to retain them as escorts or to gratify a revenge." I don't know what that last part is about, but I'd like to. Wells was riding on a train in a women's compartment in 1883 when the conductor ordered her to leave the car and go to a congested smoking car. She refused, and it took 2 men to drag her out. She wrote an article about the experience that was published in the Memphis Free Speech, a prominent black newspaper. She also hired a black lawyer and sued the railway company, winning a $500 award. But, there's always a but at this time, the Tennessee Supreme Court overturned the award and ordered Wells to pay court costs. Some things don't change. She continued teaching and wrote more articles for black papers in Memphis. Her involvement in justice for African Americans deepened. She wrote a series of articles criticizing the condition in black schools. The Memphis School Board fired her. Undaunted, she increased her journalistic activities, becoming the editor and co-owner of the black newspaper, The Free Speech. In 1892, killings in Memphis deeply impacted Wells and set in motion her work for the rest of the decade. A local white newspaper called the incident an armed rebellion by blacks in Memphis. It was a dispute between a black and a white grocer. They were arrested, 2 of the black grocers, and 75 men, masked, broke into the jail and dragged the 2 men to a train yard and publicly lynched them, shooting them dead. When I have thought of lynching, I believed it to be hanging. But the definition is much broader than that. Quote, "A lynching is a public killing of an individual who has not received due process of law. These executions are often carried out by lawless mobs as a public spectacle to intimidate blacks, end quote. Hanging was a popular method of execution, but there were also others. These included shootings, beheading, knifing, burning alive, and other grotesque methods. Often, the execution was preceded by torture, including mutilation, branding, castration, and more. Huge crowds, sometimes numbering in the thousands, gathered for these horrible spectacles. Vendors served food, and scraps of the murdered man's clothes, pieces of rope, fingers, and other body parts were sold to the crowd as souvenirs. Photographers took photographs, and the gory results were created as mementos of the event. The alleged but unproven crimes the lynched victims were executed for, including harassing, molesting, or the rape of white women. Murder, arson, robbery, attempted assault, quarreling, vagrancy, sassy talking. Wells became infuriated as she learned more about how widespread and common lynching was. She began writing article after article on lynching for her paper, The Free Speech. She particularly attacked the frequent accusation of black men raping women, which she referred to as that old threadbare lie. The white reaction to her articles was vicious. A Memphis paper wrote, "The fact that scoundrel, Ida B. Wells, is allowed to utter such loathsome and repulsive calumnies is a volume of evidence as to the wonderful patience of Southern whites." But we have had enough of it, end quote. Shortly after such statements, the building of the Free Speech was ransacked and destroyed. Wells was in New York at the time and was warned not to return for the fear of her life. Vigilantes were placed in train stations to check for the incoming trains to make sure she wasn't there. Wells stayed in New York, writing for the black paper, The New York Age, and expanding her research on lynching. In 1892, she published a 40-page pamphlet called Southern Horrors. In the letter preface, written by Frederick Douglass and just read to us so well by Debra, he gives the encouragement to her and the acknowledgement, as you heard, of her early efforts. Wells said that blacks could strike back against white interests. She said the best way is attacking them financially, that the white man's God is money. They could boycott segregated businesses and transportation. They could leave the South and move north or west. They could buy guns for self-protection. Ida B. Wells followed her Southern Horrors pamphlet with a 100-page pamphlet, The Red Record. In this publication, she holds that blacks were commonly brutalized during slavery, but rarely killed due to their monetary and labor value. Couldn't kill someone else's slave, that's for sure. But after freedom was gained, much of the value of blacks to whites was lost. They were still needed for labor, but killing them no longer represented a financial loss. Killing blacks was a tool of control, demonstrating that whites still had power and control. Lynching served as a tool of control and subjugation. Another fear that whites had was the black power to vote. In many parts of the South, blacks outnumbered whites 2-1. African American voter suppression was multifaceted. They had poll tax, literacy tests, white primaries, gerrymandering, and voter intimidation. It was not until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that most of these restrictions were eliminated, but not all. I was 15 when that finally happened. The Red Record also contained many detailed descriptions of lynching. Below is a summary that I did of one she included in her pamphlet. And this is the part of the presentation that is going to be difficult for you to hear. It's difficult for me to read every time. In the town of Paris, Texas, population about 8,000, a 3-year-old girl was killed in 1893. The girl was the daughter of a notoriously violent police officer. The officer had recently jailed and abused a local weak-minded black man, Henry Smith, who did chores around town and drank too much. When the man was released, he pledged vengeance against the police officer for his cruelty. Smith had been seen with the girl the day before she died, and people surmised that this was his vengeance against the police officer. Smith heard that he was being sought for the murder and ran away. Eventually, he was caught in Arkansas. On the way back to Paris, his captors claimed he confessed to the crime. Rumors exploded in the town about brutality and rape of the little girl, though some witnesses to the body said there were only some abrasions around the neck and no signs of rape. But the press fanned the flames of outrage, and the railroad company offered free fares to Paris. A mob that's been described between 5,000 and 15,000 people gathered in the town, according to reports. A black minister who saw Smith before the lynching said that Smith asked him, "Is it true? Did I kill her?" He didn't know. The minister was the only one who pleaded that Smith should remain in jail for the trial. The minister was later rode out of town on a rail and told that he would be next if he ever came back. He didn't. The mob took their victim from jail to a scaffold, 10 foot, that had been built with a large open area around it for the huge crowd that was there. The word justice was painted on the scaffold. Smith was stripped of his clothes, which were ripped into small patches and distributed to the crowd. He was tied to a stake and for 50 minutes was tortured with red-hot irons. With each cry or groan, the massive crowd cheered. The tortures started at his feet and inch by inch worked their way up his naked body. Upon reaching his face, they burned out his eyes and shoved hot irons down his throat. He in the scaffolding was then drenched with kerosene and set on fire. The sheriff said that he believed that Smith was dead from the torture before the fire came. When the embers cooled, people sifted through the ashes for bits of bone to sell. A few days later, Henry Smith's stepson was found hanging from a tree, his body riddled with bullets. Wells' work in women's suffrage was inseparable from her civil rights, which brought her into conflict with some white women. Wells openly criticized Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton for not fully supporting black women. This was clearly illustrated during the 1913 suffrage march on Washington, D.C. At the march, black women were instructed to march at the back of the parade. Wells refused. In her later years, Wells continued her activism, focusing on segregation in housing and education, inequalities, and political exclusion. Ida B. Wells died on March 25th, 1931. There have been 4,000 to 4,400 lynchings in the United States. There was a major drop in lynchings in 1902 and another drop in the mid-30s, with the number remaining in the single digits every year thereafter. Ida B. Wells and other anti-lynching advocates played a major role in this decline, saving hundreds, if not thousands, of lives. But the entrenchment over the next decades of segregation and suppression of blacks until the late 50s into the 60s also submerged the memory of Ida B. Wells. However, that ended in the 60s civil rights when the activists were inspired by Ida and had that same kind of energy, that no compromise. In 1971, her autobiography was finally published. Recognition has mounted since then. Statues, monuments, awards, honors, films continue into the 21st century. Ida B. Wells lived with death threats hanging over her most of her life. Yet she did not slow her activism at all. In fact, she usually increased it. Trust is the march theme for UUs, and black women put their trust in Ida, and she did not let them down. She did not compromise, conciliate, curtsy, or coddle. She worked for change, and change now. She is a great American agent of change. I'd like to end it right there, but I feel I've got to say a few more words. I wish that we could say, that is all over now, or that can never happen here again. But we can't. I can't. People can become monsters. We, as a community here and larger, need to be ready to help and protect those most vulnerable. There is suffering coming, people. And it's not for small niche groups. It's going to be for large groups of people. And we need to be ready to help those who are going to be most affected by that. Boof is going to become much more important as a community to support one another and to deal with what is going to happen. I hate to be doom and gloom, but we have to be ready for what's coming. It's kind of a dismal way to end this essay on such an incredible person, but I think Ida B. Wells would want us to reflect and act on these issues. Thank you all.
Good morning. Today for our Music for Reflection, I'll be playing O Traum der Jugend, O Goldener Stern, which is O Dream of Youth, O Golden Star, by Fanny Mendelssohn Hensel. And she was the sister of the very famous Felix Mendelssohn. However, during her lifetime, and especially for her social class, it was considered inappropriate for a woman to be a concert performer, although she was a virtuosic pianist. It was also considered inappropriate for a woman to have her own music published. Her brother Felix championed her to a degree. He wanted her music out there, and sometimes he would publish her works in his collections so that they could be spread abroad. But there was one instance in particular where Felix got to meet the Queen of England, and the Queen said to Felix, "Oh, I just loved that particular piece you wrote." And Felix had an awkward moment, had to confess, "Well, actually, that was my sister's." And even though, like I said, she was a piano virtuoso, she only played in the salon that their family would host in their home and was not able to perform publicly. But her music has since received a lot of academic attention, and many of her pieces have been published posthumously, and this is one of them.
Each week we take time to acknowledge the many joys among us and to grieve our sorrows and losses so that we might lift the burden for each other and receive the blessing of this community. We begin by sharing these joys. Jeanette Young's daughter, Jamie Black, and her husband, Corden Furryman, celebrated the addition of their second daughter on February 5th, 2025. Her name is Ernie Mae Furryman, and there is a meal train set up that you can get from the Wednesday Gazette. Their mom and baby are doing well, but they would appreciate your support. And a bittersweet joy. Connie Johnson said that she was able to be with her mother, her best friend, as she passed away from this world on February 17th. If you are holding someone in your heart this morning, I invite you to speak their name aloud into this community of love, that we may hold them with you. May the arms of this community hold all your joys and sorrows, those named and those that remain silent and close to your hearts. Let us together take a deep breath in and out, releasing the sorrow the world knows too well and finding comfort in our companionship with one another. Recognize that we are part of a whole and holy community where joy and woe are woven fine, and so we pray. Especially at this time when we are buffeted by forces intended to weaken our commitment to community, may we be guided to demonstrate our love and support for each other. May it be so. Amen. Our closing song is often referred to as the Black National Anthem. Lift Every Voice and Sing, hymn number 149, was a hymn written as a poem by NAACP leader James Weldon Johnson in 1900. His brother, John Rosamond Johnson, composed the music for the lyrics. A choir of 500 school children at the segregated Stanton School, where James Weldon Johnson was principal, first performed the song in public in Jacksonville, Florida, to celebrate President Abraham Lincoln's birthday. Please rise in body or spirit and sing number 149 in your gray hymnal.
Thank you.
Friends, I invite you to join hands with your neighbor, if you're comfortable with that. As I offer you this closing blessing by Marilyn Chandler McIntyre, what to do in the darkness. Go slowly. Consent to it, but don't wallow in it. Know it as a place of germination and growth. Remember the light. Take an outstretched hand if you find one. Exercise unused senses. Find the path by walking it. Practice trust. Watch for dawn. May it be so. Go in peace.